I was 19 the day they dropped me at the edge of FB Roy. Boots still stiff, rucksack too clean, helmet strap digging into a shave that hadn't grown in yet. The rotor wash from the Huey kicked up red dust that stuck to my sweat. And for a second I just stood there, squinting through grit, heart thumping like it was trying to run back to the bird. The chopper lifted off behind me, banking away, and with it went the last easy road out of this place. They were waiting for me at the tree line, my new unit. A recon LRRP team so worn down they looked carved out of old wood. 6 men, each one older than me by miles, even if the calendar disagreed. The first one I really noticed was the point man, Hawk. Nobody said why they called him that, but after watching how his eyes tracked every little thing, I figured he didn't need wings to see danger coming. He gave me the smallest nod, like he was already measuring my chances of surviving the week. The machine gunner, Mace, grinned like I'd just given him a joke to unwrap. "Look at this, boys. Fresh meat." The others didn't laugh, not really. Just smirked the way men do when they're too tired to waste energy. Sergeant Kane, the team leader, stepped forward. He had the kind of face that looked permanently sunburned and permanently disappointed, like the world had let him down too many times to surprise him anymore. "You the replacement?" "Yes, Sergeant." He nodded once. "Then keep your mouth shut, your eyes open, and stay on Hawk's shadow. Fall behind and you're dead before we miss you." That was my welcome to the team. We moved out within 10 minutes. No ceremony, no warming up. Just slid into the jungle like ghosts disappearing between green teeth. The canopy swallowed the light, turning the world into a damp tunnel where every sound echoed too close. My heart hammered so loud I thought it might get us killed. The others walked like they were on a sidewalk back home, smooth, silent, each step landing where it wouldn't snap anything. Hawk barely seemed to touch the ground. Mace muttered occasionally about the heat or the bugs, but even he kept it low, like the trees might be listening. Me? I was a mess. My rucksack felt twice as heavy as it had on base. Sweat ran into my eyes, stinging. My M16 already felt slippery. Every vine brushing my shoulders made me jolt. I kept checking behind me, like the jungle was closing in. By sundown, the world felt like a giant wet lung breathing around us. When we set up our night position, Kane didn't even look at me, just tapped a spot. "Here, don't move, don't talk, don't think loud." I nodded, even though I didn't know what thinking loud meant. The jungle song started soon after. Crickets droning like 1,000 tiny engines. Something big splashing in a distant creek. Leaves rustling even when the wind didn't blow. It was like the whole place was alive and pacing around us in circles. I tried not to breathe too loud. Hawk sat a few feet away from me, face expressionless, eyes half closed. He didn't look scared. He didn't look anything. I wondered how long it took for a man to get like that. I wanted to prove myself, to them, to me. I wanted to be steady, calm, the kind of soldier they could trust. But every second in that dark I felt like a kid holding a borrowed rifle. Near midnight, as I fought sleep, something moved in the blackness beyond our perimeter. Just a shift of shadow. A shape too tall to be a bush, too slow to be a wind. My stomach dropped. I froze. Nobody else reacted. I leaned toward Hawk. "I see something." His eyes opened instantly. He didn't turn his head. "Where?" I pointed a trembling finger. He waited. 10 seconds. 20. Finally, he nodded once. "Good eyes, but don't shoot shadows. They shoot back." He switched places with me, took point on the edge, and I realized something then. I wasn't ready. Not for this jungle. Not for this team. Not for whatever tomorrow would ask of me. I thought I was ready. Until the jungle reminded me it was older than all of us. Dawn came slow the next day, like the light was afraid to enter the jungle. We moved out before the sky fully brightened, stepping one by one into a world that already felt older than memory. Hawk took point again, came behind him, then me, third position. Not far enough to feel safe, not close enough to learn without fear. The jungle floor was soft, spongy, layered with rot. Every step felt like sinking into someone else's history. Around mid-morning, Hawk raised a fist and froze. The whole line stopped instantly. I didn't hesitate this time, my body already learning the rhythm. He knelt and touched something in the dirt. Prints. Kane moved up. I watched them examine the ground, their hands hovering like they were reading braille made of leaves and mud. But before they could say anything, I leaned in. Something else caught my eye. A vine looped around a branch, too cleanly sliced to be natural. "Sir, that cut's fresh, maybe a day old." Kane looked at me, really looked for the first time. "You sure?" "Yes, Sergeant." Hawk gave a slow nod. "He's right." It felt strange, being noticed, like stepping into a new skin I wasn't sure I deserved. The prince led west, curving around a slope none of us recognized. Kane muttered under his breath, almost to himself. "This trail's not on any map. Someone didn't want us here." We pushed on, deeper, slower. Every root and branch suddenly a potential message. The air grew heavier, the silence grew thicker. Even the insects seemed to pause when we passed. I kept seeing little signs. A twig bent the wrong way, a muddy toe mark pointing uphill, sap bleeding from a freshly cut tree. It was like someone had left breadcrumbs for us, breadcrumbs they knew we would notice. By noon, the squad began asking me what I thought. "Boot, how old's that?" "Couple hours, maybe?" "He's got good eyes." It felt good, until I realized what trust meant out here. When you're useful, they put weight on you. When weight gets too heavy, it cracks. The further we walked, the more the jungle changed. The canopy thickened like a ceiling closing in. The ground tilted subtly, funneling us into a narrow valley. Hawk stopped again. He pointed to a ridgeline barely visible through the trees, something metallic glinting for a moment before vanishing. "Scout mirror?" Kane cursed under his breath. "They're watching us." They weren't wrong. The jungle felt crowded now, eyes everywhere. Every leaf quivered like it was breathing. We found the trail late afternoon, an NVA path dug smooth by countless feet. Not on any map, not on any briefing. It stretched into the trees like an invitation we never wanted. Kane stared at it, jaw tight. "Boys, we're walking in someone else's footsteps, and they know it." We set camp early, too exposed, too uneasy to push farther. Everyone stayed wired, rifles across their knees, fingers brushing triggers. Dusk rolled in fast, shadow upon shadow. The air smelled like wet bark and danger. Around midnight I heard movement. Not animal, too slow, too patient. I nudged Hawk. He had already heard it. "Stay low." Shapes flickered between trees, 2, maybe 3. No metal clicks, no whispers. Just the soft pad of feet that knew every inch of this forest. Mace gripped his M60, eyes wide. Kane leaned close to me. "Tell me what you see." My throat tightened. 1, maybe more, at 10 o'clock. Then it happened. A figure stepped into a sliver of moonlight, thin, small-framed, wearing a pith helmet. An NVA scout. He turned his head slowly until his eyes locked directly on mine. He didn't raise a rifle, didn't shout. He just looked, memorizing us. And then he slipped backward into the dark, like the jungle swallowed him whole. My pulse hammered so hard I felt it in my teeth. Hawk whispered, "They're walking around us, testing us." Kane didn't speak for a long moment. Then, "We're not hunting them anymore. They're herding us." That was the first night I realized the enemy wasn't lost. We were. Morning came heavy and grey, like the sun was pushing through wet wool. None of us slept much, not after seeing that NVA scout staring right into us like he was counting heads. Still, Kane pushed us forward at first light. Said we needed to figure out what they knew, or what they were hiding. We moved slow. Too slow. Like the jungle itself resisted each step. The air was thick as soup. My shirt stuck to my back. Every sound, every twig snap, every breath felt too loud. Then Hawk stopped again. No hand signal this time. He just froze like his blood turned to ice. Kane whispered, "Talk to me." Hawk pointed through a tangle of vines. At first I saw nothing but leaves stacked on leaves. Then the green broke open. A clearing, but not a natural one. Open ground, almost perfectly shaped, maybe 60 yards across. Grass beaten flat by boots. Smoke rising from pits. And beyond that, shapes. Not huts. Structures. Fresh wood, canvas roofs, sandbag walls. A whole camp, hidden like a secret tooth in the mouth of the jungle. We dropped to our stomachs without a word. I crawled beside Hawk, leaves sticking to my palms. He whispered, "Intel said a squad, maybe a platoon. This is a company at least." Kane cursed under his breath. "This isn't recon anymore. This is suicide." I peered through the brush. NVA soldiers moved calmly inside the clearing, cooking rice, tanning hides, cleaning their rifles. They weren't rushing, weren't searching. They weren't surprised. They looked like men who already knew exactly where we were. We watched in silence. 15 minutes. 20. Sweat rolled into my eyes. The sounds of the camp drifted. Soft metal clicks, a few quiet laughs, a radio buzzing. Then Kane whispered, "We document it. Then we fall back. No engagements." Hawk nodded and pulled out a small notebook. I shifted my knee just an inch to get a better view. Just 1 inch. And a dry branch beneath me cracked. Sharp, unforgiving, louder than a gunshot. I froze. My heart slammed hard enough I felt it in my throat. Kane's eyes widened. Hawk pressed his hand flat in the air as if that would quiet the world. But nothing happened. No shouts, no flares, no rifles lifted. The camp didn't even pause. It wasn't ignorance. It was worse. They'd already known. Kane leaned close, whispering like the words might break his teeth. "They're letting us watch them." A chill slid down my spine. We started backing out inch by inch. Sweet, slow, agonizing inches. Then the jungle exploded. A mortar shrieked down behind us with a crack so violent my vision flashed white. Dirt rose in a wave. Leaves rained down. Kane screamed, "Move! Move!" We scattered like insects. No formation, no order, pure instinct. I dove behind a fallen log. Another mortar slammed into a tree, blowing bark into splinters that whistled past my face. I heard Mace yelling for Hawk, Jensen screaming something I couldn't understand. My body didn't listen, I just crawled, hands slipping in mud, face pressed to the earth. The jungle shook. Mortars landed in staggered patterns, controlled, precise. They weren't trying to wipe us out. They were corralling us. A branch hit me in the shoulder. I rolled down slope, thorns tearing into my arms, mud filling my mouth. When I finally stopped, I was alone. No voices, no footsteps. Just distant booms and the hiss of settling debris. My lungs clawed for air. My heartbeat felt too loud. Kane? Hawk? Anybody? Nothing. I started to crawl, belly tight to the ground, one elbow in front of the other. Roots grabbed at my sleeves, mud sucked at my knees. The jungle pressed in so close I felt swallowed. Shadows moved somewhere in the distance, too quick to be trees. I kept crawling until my hands trembled and my breath rasped like metal scraping metal. Then, faintly, like a whisper through the leaves, I heard a voice. "This way!" It was Mace, or I hoped it was. I followed it, dragging myself through the tangle, crawling until my fingers bled. By the time I reached them, the squad was reduced, scattered, coated in mud like ghosts rising from the earth. Kane looked at each of us, eyes hollow. He didn't need to say it. We all felt it. Ending line. That's when I understood. We weren't watching them. They were waiting for us. Fear awakened, the mission's true danger revealed. Trust unraveling. We pulled ourselves back together the way wounded animals do. Close enough to feel less alone. Far enough apart to keep fear from spreading like fire. Kane counted heads. Jaw clenched so hard I thought his teeth might crack. We'd lost Jensen somewhere in the mortar chaos. Hawk wanted to circle back. Kane shut it down with a single look. We try to go back. We die back there. We move north. Nobody argued. Not because we agreed, but because arguing took breath we didn't have. We started moving, slower than before. Every footstep placed like it was glass. The jungle felt tighter, thicker, as if the trees were listening. Even the insects seemed quieter. After an hour, Hawk raised a fist to halt. The path ahead, a narrow runoff trail, had a strand of fishing wire stretched across it at knee height. Under it sat a rusted pineapple grenade, pin rigged to the line. Kane exhaled just once. They're hurting us. We cut the wire, stepped around it, and kept going. The next obstacle came faster. Hawk was leading. My position was third. He saw the glint too late, the metallic flash half buried under leaves. His foot came down on a pressure plate. He had time to say one thing. Ah, hell. The explosion hit him like a sledgehammer. A flash, a pop, a shockwave. Leaves blowing upward like confetti. Hawk didn't scream. He just folded backward, arms open, as if he were trying to hug the sky. I threw up. No warning, no control. Just bile and terror. Kane grabbed my shoulder. "Stay with me! Stay with me!" I nodded, wiped my mouth, and forced myself upright. We left Hawk where he fell. Couldn't carry him, couldn't bury him. The jungle swallowed him almost immediately. From then on, every step felt like a question the ground might answer with violence. An hour later, the first sniper shot cracked through the canopy. The bullet snapped into a tree trunk inches from Webb's face. Another hit the dirt between my boots. We dove, belly flat, dragging ourselves backwards through muck. Kane tried to locate the shooter, but the jungle was too thick. "They're shadowing us," Webb hissed. No one disagreed. We tried to radio for extraction. Static, then more static. Finally a voice, broken, distant. "Repeat, cannot see, no visual, canopy too dense, hold Then nothing but white noise. The radio operator smacked the side of the handset, but it didn't help. Rain started again, heavy, pounding, drowning out even our breath. Morale slipped fast, like water through fingers. Webb muttered that we should split, move in pairs to increase the odds. Mace threatened to knock his teeth out if he tried. Kane tried keeping order, but he limped now, dragging his left foot slightly. I saw the blood through his pant leg. He was hurt worse than he let on. We kept pushing north, but every route was blocked. Fallen trees arranged too perfectly, tripwires stretched between roots, fresh signs of NVA patrols. They knew where we were going before we did. We circled, doubled back, tried a ridge, tried a creek bed. Every move felt like walking deeper into a maze drawn by someone who wanted us exhausted. That night we huddled under wide leaves as rain soaked us again. No fire, no talking. Just breathing and waiting for shapes in the dark to move. Webb whispered to me, "They're screwing with us. They don't want to kill us fast. They want us scared." He wasn't wrong. Around midnight, something rustled out in the trees. Not an animal, too heavy, too careful. I lifted my rifle, but Kane put a hand on it. "They're all around. Don't waste the shot." His voice wasn't the same as before. It trembled under the surface. And for the first time since I'd known him, Kane didn't look like a leader. He looked like a man out of ideas. The rain finally eased around dawn, but dawn didn't bring clarity, just more fog. We set out again, silent, hollow, moving because stopping felt like dying. That's when it hit me. We weren't soldiers anymore. We weren't a unit. We weren't even following orders. We were just pieces of a map that didn't matter. We weren't a team anymore. We were pieces of a map that didn't matter. By late afternoon, the rain stopped as suddenly as it had come, leaving the jungle steaming like some great animal catching its breath. We moved in a line, slow and shaky, with Kane limping just enough that the rest of us pretended not to see. Every sound around us felt sharper, louder, too loud. Every silence felt intentional. Then the trees thinned, and we stepped out onto a dry creek bed. Pale dust, exposed roots, high ridgelines on both sides. Open. Too open. I felt my stomach twist. "Kane, this isn't good ground." He looked around, breathing hard, face pale under the grime. "We have to cross it. Fast." We formed a staggered column, boots crunching softly on the dry sediment. Mace kept scanning upward. Webb kept muttering under his breath like he was trying to keep himself anchored to something human. The thing that bothered me most wasn't what I heard. It was what I didn't. No birds, no insects, no wind. Just absence. We were halfway across when the silence snapped. The first shot cracked so loud it felt like someone slapped the world. Mace dropped instantly, like a string had been cut. Then another shot, and another. A wall of gunfire erupted from the ridgeline, controlled, precise, disciplined. NVA. They had us in a perfect bowl. I dove behind a washout ledge, rolling in the dust. Webb screamed somewhere behind me. Someone yelled for cover. The air filled with dust, splinters, bits of rock exploding like shrapnel. Kane slid next to me, dragging me by the collar. "Stay down! Stay down!" I pressed myself into the dirt so hard it felt like the earth was trying to swallow me. Every shot echoed off the ridge walls, turning the whole place into a cage of sound. Webb tried to fire back, blind and desperate. "Where the hell are they?" A round hit him square in the chest. He didn't scream, just folded sideways, like a man kneeling to pray. I crawled toward him, but Kane grabbed me again. "Leave him! Move!" The firing intensified. Dust filled my mouth. I could barely breathe. Every time I tried to look up, bullets kicked up dirt inches from my face. The NVA weren't trying to scare us. They were harvesting us. Kane dragged himself closer, pressing his shoulder to mine. His breath rattled. "Listen. Listen to me." I looked at him, really looked. His eyes were glassy. His shirt was soaked in blood, more than I'd realized. "You're the smallest, the only one who can fit through that runoff cut behind us. It leads to the trees. You slip through, get out, find comms. You bring someone back." My throat closed. Shaking, pleading. "Kane, I'm not leaving you." He grabbed the front of my vest with a strength he shouldn't have had left. Angrily, desperate. "You don't get to choose. You hear me? You don't get to choose!" Bullets snapped over us like breaking bones. Somebody has to make it out. "That's you." I shook my head, tears mixing with the dust. Another explosion of gunfire erupted from the ridge. Mace, or what was left of him, jerked from another burst. Kane shoved me toward the narrow crack in the embankment. Solemn, firm. "Go." I hesitated. That's when Laramie, bleeding from 2 places I could see, stood up behind a log, firing wildly in every direction. "Hey! Over here! Here!" He knew exactly what he was doing. The NVA fire swung toward him like a spotlight. Kane pushed me again, weak, with finality. "Run." I crawled toward the crack. The world behind me became screams, gunfire, breaking earth. Just as I slipped into the narrow escape channel, I heard Laramie's last shout, a sound somewhere between bravery and surrender. "Go!" I didn't look back. I crawled through bodies, mud, thorns, roots that tore my arms open. I crawled until my fingers went numb, until the gunfire was distant, until I couldn't hear my own heartbeat over the ringing in my ears. When I finally burst through to the tree line, my body shaking uncontrollably, the jungle greeted me with birdsong. The silence had lifted, but I knew what it meant. So I didn't survive because I was brave. I survived because I was small enough to disappear. I didn't go back to that stretch of jungle for a long time. Decades, really. I told myself life got in the way. Work, marriage, a kid, bills. But the truth was simpler. I was afraid of what I'd find, and even more afraid of what I wouldn't. But eventually, the years piled up like fallen leaves, and I started hearing Kane's voice again. Laramie's shout. Webb's last breath. Not in nightmares, not as ghosts, just memories. Worn thin, but somehow sharper than when they were new. So I booked a flight, bought a map that didn't matter, and let the past pull me back to a country that had once tried to swallow me whole. Vietnam didn't look like the place I left. Cities bigger, roads smoother, faces younger. But when I stepped into the countryside, into that old province that once felt like the front doorstep to hell, yeah, the air changed. The humidity wrapped around me like some old, unkind friend. A local guide led me upriver, his straw hat bobbing as he spoke in gentle tones. I told him I wanted to see old battle sites. Didn't say which one, didn't have to. He pointed ahead. American soldiers fought here long ago. Very bad battle. Locals call it Noisam Setver Ra. I asked him what that meant. The place where thunder broke. I felt my chest tighten. They remembered. Maybe not the names, not the units, not the details. But the violence left cracks in the earth that never quite healed. Even the jungle, thick and alive as it was, hadn't managed to bury the memory. We walked another hour before he stopped and gestured toward a patch of ground choked with vines. The creek bed was gone, just a shallow depression under roots. But the ridge lines were the same. Familiar angles, familiar shadows. It felt like standing inside an old photograph where someone had smeared the edges. I told the guide I needed a moment alone, and he bowed before stepping back toward the trees. And just like that, I was alone with ghosts. I walked the length of the depression, boots sinking into damp soil. My foot hit something metallic, soft, muted. I knelt and brushed away the mud. A dog tag. Rusted, misshapen, unreadable, but American. It could have been Mace's, or Webb's, or Laramie's, or maybe it belonged to someone I never even met. Another patrol chewed up by the same unseen jaws. I turned it over in my palm. If the name was once there, time had erased it the same way the jungle erased everything else. But I knew what it meant. I knew who it stood for. For the first time in years, I whispered something I'd been carrying in my throat since I crawled out of that runoff crack. I'm sorry. The wind didn't answer. The trees didn't move. The world just held its breath. I sat there, dog tag in hand, trying to make sense of the math of survival. Why me? Why did being small, being quiet, being the one who blended into the background, why did that become the reason I lived? People tell you survival is luck, or fate, or divine grace. I don't know about any of that. But I do know this. Sometimes the thing that saves you is the thing that haunts you long after the shooting stops. I survived because I didn't stand out. Because I didn't run first. Because I didn't shout orders. Because I didn't fight with the same reckless fire the others did. I survived because I was the quiet one. And for years, I thought that meant I had less to carry. But walking that ground again, feeling the weight of that nameless dog tag, hearing the jungle breathe like it was remembering us, I understood something deeper, something heavier. The quiet ones aren't spared. They're just left behind to remember. I placed the dog tag back in the soil, not to bury it, but to let it rest. To let them rest. I stood, wiped my hands, and looked across the empty clearing where thunder once broke the sky. I was the quiet one, and because of that, I'm the one left to tell what happened. If you've made it this far, thank you. These stories take time to tell, and even longer to understand. You've just walked through the memories of men who were never supposed to be remembered. If their voices meant something to you, if even one line stayed behind when the sound faded, don't let it disappear. Give this video a like, share it with someone who still believes history belongs to the living, and subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the next story. Every episode here is another page, another life, another truth pulled out of the smoke. Drop a comment too. Not for the algorithm, but for the conversation. Tell me what you felt, or what you remember hearing from your own fathers, grandfathers, uncles, or friends. That's how these memories stay alive. Subscribe, stay with us, and let's keep turning the pages. Together.